All right, have you ever sit down, open up Claude, and just freeze? Like there's this mountain of code in your SwiftUI app. You've got three bugs to squash, and all you want is a clean answer. But the prompt you type, total spaghetti. Maybe Claude spins off into la la land or gives you a wall of boilerplate you didn't need. Maybe it just freezes, quiet ghost mode. Or maybe, and this is the weirdest one, it confidently spits out something almost right, but just enough off that you spend the next hour untangling what it did. That's been me too many times. It's the real friction of building alone with an AI teammate who sometimes acts like a rock star and other times just vibes out. So, yeah, I've burned a lot of hours in prompt purgatory, and I bet you have too. But that's why today we're going deep on prompting 101, not the corporate prompt engineering angle, but the raw lived experience of figuring out how to actually talk to Claude Code. So it helps you build smarter, stay in flow, and avoid that soul sucking burnout. So, yeah, this is not a pitch, and it's definitely not another surface level how to prompt. This is a breakdown. What actually stood out from Anthropic's Prompting 101 talk? What works and what misses completely when you're solo debugging SwiftUI, wrestling with weird build errors, or trying to keep momentum when Claude's suggestions start to get noisy? You'll either pick up something new or you'll feel less alone. Next time Claude ghosts your prompt or goes full AI philosopher instead of shipping working code. Real quick, I'm Daniel. I've been in the iOS game for almost 8 years, freelancing, shipping apps for other people. But since Dub 25, I've gone full solo dev, building in public, and yeah, still figuring out this whole personal brand thing. More on that for another video. Okay, so when I first started using Claude, my whole process was basically type in a prompt, cross my fingers, and hope something useful comes out. You know that feeling? It's late, your brain is fried, and you're staring at your code like it's speaking a different language. You just want a quick win, so you punch in your question and hope the AI spits out something magical. But here's the hard truth. Claude isn't magic. It's not a slot machine where you just keep pulling the handle until you hit the jackpot. If anything, it's closer to a new teammate on your indie dev team, someone who can help a ton, but only if you actually onboard them. That was a real wake-up call for me, because when I'd get random, totally off the mark answers from Claude, I used to think, man, this thing is clueless today. But after watching Anthropic's Hannah and Christian break it down, it finally clicked. Prompt engineering is really about communicating with the model, giving it the context it needs to complete the task, and thinking through how you arrange that info for the best result. That's all there is to it. It's not some mysterious AI art, it's just communication. The catch, though, and this is what most of us miss at first, is that Claude can't read your mind. If you have quirks in your code base, if you use custom scripts, if you like your Swiftlint rules a certain way, you have to tell Claude about them. Otherwise, it's just guessing. And let's be real, guessing is how you end up cleaning up weird code at midnight. This is exactly where Claude.md becomes your best friend. And if you're anything like me, you're already used to scribbling half-remembered setup notes in random markdown files or Google Docs. Claude.md just gives that chaos a home, but it's not an official doc you fill out once and forget. It's a living, breathing playbook for Claude and for you. Every weird build flag, every preferred way to structure test helpers, oh, by the way, always use struct over class unless there's a good reason. It goes in there. Just imagine you're onboarding a junior dev. Everything you'd wish they just got on their first day, drop it in Claude.md. I started basic stuff like don't touch main directly. Here's my Firebase config for local dev. Run this shell script to set up test data. And every time I notice Claude making the same mistake, or me re-explaining something for the third time. I just added a new line. Sometimes I literally write a note to Claude, hey, do not refactor X unless I ask. Yes, I am talking to my future self, no shame. And the payoff, it's actually massive. I spend way less energy re-explaining the basics, and I get more real work done. Less, why did Claude mess this up? And more, oh, it just works, which honestly is all I ever wanted out of any tool. The only catch, Claude.md is never done. It's not a set and forget file. Every time you notice Claude missing the point or hallucinating something weird, check your Claude.md and update it. Make important lines. Call out new patterns. It's like cleaning up your workspace. Little updates as you go. Keep things running smoothly. And if you're the kind of indie dev who bounces between projects, I see you, side hustlers and client wranglers, use project-specific Claude.md files. Even if you're working in a big mono repo, stick one in each subdirectory if you have to. Claude will pull in context for where you're working. It sounds like a small thing, but after a few weeks, you'll realize just how much time you're saving and how much less you want to yell at your screen. So, yeah, the vending machine days are over. Start treating Claude like a real teammate, one who's always learning, always improving, and if you give it the right context, actually pretty good at helping you ship. Look, I'll be honest, there's nothing more annoying than repeating yourself to an AI, especially when you're in the middle of a solo dev sprint and just trying to get things done. I can't tell you how many times I've opened up Claude, ready to debug the same stubborn bit of authentication code, only to realize, again, I have to remind it, hey, by the way, I'm using Firebase auth here, not some generic email password flow. It starts to feel like Groundhog Day. You've got your flow, your quirks, the oddball tools that make your project run, and yet every session, you're explaining all that from scratch. And the kicker, if you skip the explanation, maybe you're tired, maybe you just want to move fast, Claude inevitably starts making up stuff that doesn't fit. Suddenly it's telling you to use methods you never installed or making guesses that make zero sense for your stack. Here's what finally broke the cycle for me, realizing there's absolutely no reason to burn energy and tokens repeating yourself. Anthropic really hammered this point. If something about your setup doesn't change, stop putting it in every prompt and start putting it somewhere permanent. For Claude, that's your system prompt, or even better, your Claude.md. Once I started doing this, things just got lighter. If I always want Claude to know about my CLI scripts, the way I run local dev, or that I've got a specific SwiftLint config, I just drop it into Claude.md once. Suddenly I'm not wasting time and attention explaining the same boring facts over and over. Claude just knows. The even bigger win, you can cache this info. So now every time I sit down to work, whether it's a brand new feature or just chasing down a bug, Claude has the right context baked in from the start. It's like having a teammate who actually listens and remembers the boring stuff so you can get back to the parts of building that actually need your attention. And here's why this is such a lifesaver for solo devs. Every time you force Claude to relearn your world, it's like you're making a new hire start from zero again and again. You burn tokens, sure, but you also increase the chance of those random off-the-wall answers that make you doubt your own sanity. It's the quickest way to end up with prompt spaghetti, a tangle of explanations, half context, and wasted time. System prompts and a good Claude.md are basically your anti-spaghetti shield. They save your brain. They keep you in flow. And if I'm honest, they've helped me cut down on those why am I even using AI for this moments that used to kill my momentum. So if you're still repeating yourself every time you use Claude, take the time just once to write down what actually matters for your workflow. Give your future self the gift of less repetition and way fewer headaches. Trust me, it adds up. All right, so let's talk about one of the real pain points with AI, hallucination. If you've ever told Claude, hey, just fix this bug in my Swift file, you probably know the feeling. Sometimes it works, but way too often it takes a wild guess, changes code that was already fine, or goes down a rabbit hole that leaves you with more mess than you started. I've been there more times than I want to count. It's one of those moments where you wonder, did I just make my own life harder by asking for help? Here's what I finally picked up from watching how Anthropic actually uses Claude. The more structure you give your prompt, the less likely you are to get those hallucinatory, off the wall answers. It sounds obvious, but as a solo dev, it's so easy to just throw the problem at Claude and hope for the best, especially when you're tired or just want to get something fixed fast. But hope and pray prompts, they're the fastest way to get back creative fiction instead of working code. So here's what I started doing. Instead of just dumping a file and saying, fix the bug, I walk Claude through the task step by step, almost like I'm writing instructions for a junior dev on their first real bug hunt. I start by saying what I actually want, something like, you're an AI assistant helping me debug home view Swift. The goal, find and fix the off by one bug in the section index logic. Then I paste the code or the crash log or both if it's gnarly. And then instead of just saying fix it, I spell out the steps. First, review all the index math for off by one errors. Second, suggest the minimal fix you think is needed. Third, show me the full diff you'd make. Fourth, double check that your fix doesn't introduce a new issue. If I have a test case that's been breaking, like when section count is 3, index 3 should never be accessed. I'll include that too, right in the prompt, just so there's no way Claude can miss the point. It might sound like overkill, but honestly, since I started writing prompts this way, the number of Claude hallucinated a solution and broke everything moments has dropped off a cliff. The model actually pays attention to what's in front of it instead of guessing at invisible bugs or making up logic that has nothing to do with my app. One more thing I started adding to my prompts, I tell Claude to admit if it's unsure. Like literally, if you're not confident based on what I've pasted, just say unsure and stop. You'd be surprised how much this changes the tone of the answers. I get a lot more, here's what I see based on the code you shared, and way less creative riffing. And for me as a solo dev, that's what I want. I'd rather have an honest, limited answer than spend the next hour cleaning up after a guess. Sure, writing prompts this way takes a little longer up front, but it's paid off with hours, sometimes entire evenings, saved on cleanup. When in doubt, be as explicit as you can. Lay it out step by step. Give the context, the constraints, and examples if you have them. That way Claude stays grounded in your real code, and you stay in the driver's seat, not lost in AI hallucination land. Right, so here's something that totally changed the way I use Claude. I actually want it to tell me when it doesn't know the answer. It sounds counterintuitive, right? I mean, you'd think the whole point of an AI assistant is to be helpful all the time. But after enough late nights where Claude confidently hallucinated a fix that only made things weirder, I realized when you're working solo, a wrong answer is way, way worse than no answer at all. This mindset shift came straight out of Anthropic's talk. They made it clear the best thing you can do for your own sanity is to build in explicit fallbacks. Now, when I write a prompt, I'll tell Claude, only answer if you're actually certain based on the code I gave you. If you're unsure, even a little, just reply insufficient information. At first, it felt kind of silly, like I was lowering the bar for what I expected from AI. But then, for the first time, I started getting honest. I don't know replies instead of made up solutions. It was freeing. Suddenly, if there was missing context, say a dependency I forgot to paste in, or a Swift package that Claude had never seen before, it would just say so. No fiction, no guesswork, just a simple signal that I needed to provide more info before moving forward. And if you're building something that's going to touch users, SwiftUI onboarding flow, a custom little agent, whatever, it's actually a relief to know that Claude can log its own uncertainty or kick something into a needs review state instead of forging ahead with half the facts. That's huge for catching subtle bugs before they sneak into production. I'd much rather get a little flag saying, hey, double check this, than quietly ship something broken. Designing for uncertainty doesn't mean accepting less from your tools. For me, it means building a safer feedback loop, one that's honest about the limits of what Claude knows. So I'm never blindly pasting in a fix that could cause a cascade of new issues. It's an extra guardrail for solo devs like us, and honestly, it's made my whole workflow feel a lot more trustworthy. Okay, yeah, this is where the solo dev grind gets interesting, because sometimes you want Claude to follow your instructions to the absolute letter. No improvisation, no wild ideas. Just do what I said, exactly as I said it. Other times, though, you really do want Claude to think outside the box, riff on your idea, or surprise you with something you wouldn't have come up with on your own. The thing Anthropic hammered home in their demo is this: if you want a single shot prompt to just work, like refactor exactly these two files and don't touch anything else, format the output as a patch, and don't you dare modify app delegate, then you need to be specific. Spell out every file, every rule, even the things you don't want touched. Claude does best when the rails are clear and the outcome is well defined. But there are times when that kind of strict prompting just backfires. Maybe you're working on a big UI redesign or thinking through a new architecture, or you honestly don't know what the answer should be yet. If you're too rigid in your prompt, Claude can either lock up and tell you not enough data, or just give you a flat, boring answer that misses the bigger picture. Sometimes you want a bit of creative improv, a gentle nudge rather than a checklist. Honestly, for me, finding the right balance is like tuning an instrument. I'll usually start out pretty specific, especially if I know exactly what I want and I just need it done. But if Claude keeps telling me there isn't enough information or gives me back nothing useful, I relax my prompt a bit, maybe drop some constraints, leave the task a bit more open-ended, and see where it takes things. On the flip side, if I notice Claude wandering too much or hallucinating solutions that don't fit my app, I start reining it in, tightening up the instructions, and spelling out what's allowed and what's not. It's not one size fits all, and it's never perfect. But the best solo devs I know treat prompt writing as a creative, almost musical process. Sometimes you need everything note for note, sometimes you need space to jam. The trick is knowing which moments call for strict specificity and which ones are better left a bit open so Claude can help you see the bigger picture. And if you get it wrong, tweak it, try again, and keep building. That's the whole game. Well, this one honestly hit. Anthropic rolled out this idea of extended thinking. Basically, you let Claude take its time, use a big scratch pad, reason through the steps, and spell out its logic as it works. And when you're knee deep in something gnarly, like core data migrations or untangling a new async workflow, giving Claude more breathing room can make a real difference. You see it start to reason things out, surface the logic gaps, catch subtle bugs that a fast answer would totally miss. Sometimes it'll spot an architectural flaw or catch that off by one you were too tired to see at midnight. But the flip side is just as real. If you try to use extended thinking for everything, for quick refactors, little bug fixes, the stuff where you just want a direct answer, it's totally overkill. You burn way more tokens. You wait for Claude to spin up these big dramatic responses, and half the time you're left thinking, wow, that was a lot of words for what should have been a one-line fix. I've had sessions where I turned on extended thinking for a simple rename, and it just dragged the process out for no reason. So, what's actually worked for me is this: I treat extended thinking like a special tool, not the default. When I'm working on a big multi file refactor, or I'm genuinely stuck on some architectural debate, that's when I ask Claude to go deep, lay out its reasoning, and talk through each step. But for everything else, I stick to short, focused prompts, get in, get the answer, move on. The other thing I've learned, if you ever feel like Claude is spinning its wheels, stuck in its own thoughts, just trim your prompt. More space isn't always better. Sometimes you want the AI to just cut to the chase so you can get back to building. It's a balance, and it honestly took me a while to find it, but now I think of extended thinking as my deep work mode for AI. Use it when you need the heavy lifting, but don't let it bog you down when you just need to ship. Sometimes less is more, even with a model as smart as Claude. And before I wrap this up, let me just riff for a second about all the little hacks and habits have actually saved my sanity. First off, it's clear as my lifeline. I swear sessions get noisy so fast. You're deep into a bug, then you pivot to something else, and suddenly Claude is referencing context from 3 tasks ago. Now, whenever I switch gears, new feature, different bug, whatever, I just will clear. It's like hitting reset on a whiteboard that's gotten way too crowded. And when I've got a pile of repetitive work, like cleaning up a bunch of PRs or migrating a ton of files, I lean on headless mode. I'll script out what I need, batch the tasks, and let Claude chew through it with its CLI flags. It's not glamorous, but it means I don't have to sit there babysitting every step. Another weird but surprisingly helpful trick: I'll run 2 Claude sessions at once, one to write and the other just to review. You'd be amazed at how many subtle bugs or style issues this catches. It's like having a backup brain without having to bribe someone with coffee to look over your code. GitHub stuff. I give Claude the boring jobs: writing commit messages, triaging issues, scraping through old PRs. It loves that kind of grunt work. That way, I save my brain power for the parts of dev that are actually interesting, not the paperwork. And honestly, never underestimate the power of visuals. If I'm stuck on a UI layout, accessibility issue, or something just looks off in SwiftUI, I'll paste in a screenshot, a Figma mock, or even a photo of a whiteboard sketch. Claude genuinely works better when it can see what I'm working on. Sometimes it spots stuff in seconds that would take me an hour of fiddling. Last thing, don't be shy about cutting Claude off if it's going sideways. If the answer starts drifting, I just interrupt, reset, and try again. Course correct early, course correct often. It's not rude, it's how you get back to flow. That's the real indie advantage. You get to tweak the workflow until it's actually helping you, not just adding more noise. So whether it's a big launch week or just a messy Tuesday, these tiny rituals have kept me from losing my mind. Try them, remix them, or invent your own, whatever it takes to keep building. So that's my take on prompting Claude agents. Not the theory, but the parts that actually clicked or didn't. For me as a solo iOS dev, it's a relationship, not a vending machine. The more you teach Claude about your world, the more helpful it becomes. If you've been experimenting with agent prompts, hit a weird limit, or just have a story where Claude went off the rails, drop it in the comments. I try to reply to everyone, and I love swapping notes with other indie builders. If this helped you out, feel free to like, subscribe, or share it with another dev wrestling with AI prompts. Maybe it'll help them stay in flow and ship a little more, burn out a little less. Until next time, keep crafting, keep learning, and don't let a tricky prompt stop you from building something great. Peace.